Assalamu alaikum. As the press, it is our duty to inform the masses about the changes happening around them. Sometimes a little change can go a long way, and we believe in the power of our voice to inform, educate, and make a real difference. I'm Daishin Amir, and this is the Fourth Estate. Tonight, we meet an important developmental partner of the Maldives, the United Nations Development Programme (UNDP), to find out more about its efforts to help the Maldives achieve its national development goals and its international commitments, including the Millennium Development Goals (MDGs) and the newly proposed Sustainable Development Goals (SDGs). To discuss this, I'm joined by Mr. Mohammed Nasheed Toha, who is the Assistant Resident Representative of the UNDP here in the Maldives. Mr. Nasheed, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
To start off, can you tell us something about the role of the UNDP in the Maldives?
The UNDP in the Maldives is a development partner that works with the government to working with the government to support the communities to enhance and improve their lives and bring meaningful change to the Maldives as a country.
Sounds interesting. Now let's talk about the MDGs, which were formed 15 years ago in 2000, which aim to reduce poverty and hunger, achieve universal education, promote gender equality, reduce child and maternal deaths, combat HIV, malaria and other diseases, ensure environmental sustainability and develop global partnerships. How well did we do on the MDGs?
I think Maldives is an exemplary country in terms of MDGs. If you look into it, back in 2010, Maldives became the first MDG plus country in the region. We achieved 5 of the MDG goals.
Impressive.
Yeah, and we were lagging behind in promoting gender equality, environmental sustainability and global partnerships.
Why did we lag behind in those areas?
I think in terms of promoting gender equality, there were a couple of issues that were there. One, we have cultural, religious and social norms that impact the way people think about gender equality, and that actually impacted on achieving the target as it were to be achieved. But we saw that even in terms of gender, primary education, in terms of access to primary education, the parity was achieved. Even for higher education, parity was achieved. It's at tertiary level where we seem to be lacking. In terms of employment, there are problems there, but we do see improvements as well. In terms of environmental sustainability, it's an issue that's been faced globally as well. There are sets of agreements that are coming in place, but really full agreements by different countries on how to achieve them has not still been agreed upon, and that is having an impact on Maldives as well.
Now let's talk about the newly proposed SDGs, which is a newly proposed set of international development goals that we are looking forward to adopting this year itself, and its deadline is 2030, so we have 15 more years to actually work towards achieving those goals. Why do we need another set of goals? Can't we just extend the Millennium Development Goals as they are?
The Millennium Development Goals were the difference between the Millennium Development Goals and the Sustainable Development Goals is that the Sustainable Development Goals is now seen as a people's agenda. If we look into how the Sustainable Development Goals came about, there's been long negotiations on how it's been coming along. Even in the Maldives, I'm sure you would have heard of My World Survey, where people were getting feedback on their aspirations for the future. Similar things were happening all throughout the world, and at different occasions, starting from Rio 20 and others, there were different sets of agendas that were being promoted which showed a commonality, and these are the draft outcome. This was what was agreed in the draft outcome document this month in August, and this is probably the one that's going to be adopted in September.
So basically, the UN had an open working group, OWG, to actually come up with these new goals.
Yes.
17 goals. We're talking about 17 goals, which is quite a huge number compared to the 8 goals that we had back in 2000. How confident are you that the SDGs would be effective?
The SDGs looks into it acts as a the MDGs acts as a springboard to the SDGs, and the way SDGs is being framed is it's being said that the SDGs actually are 5 Ps, so it actually has 5 areas that are encompassing throughout. So it's the people,
yeah,
the planet, prosperity, peace and partnership, and that's the way SDGs are being framed, and the targets and how they are being achieved are being set through discussions through local partners. There, if I'm not mistaken, there is already a working committee on this in the Maldives, and they are working to localize the targets so that it could be something that could be achieved at a country level. And from the MDGs, we've learned that this is something that we can do, and what we need to do is convince the people that this is something that is achievable and invest in it.
How confident are you that the Maldives' interests and the Maldives' specific interests especially would be reflected in the SDGs?
I think one area that Maldives tend to come out in the global agenda is on climate change, and this is highly reflected in the new SDGs. There are 2 areas that I can right at the top of my head think about that comes up here. It's on access to safe water, climate change infrastructure, and in resilient infrastructure, and as well as the agreements that are coming out that would come out in December through the Paris COP21 will also be reflected in the SDGs.
Here in the Maldives, there have been allegations that human rights have not been upheld. In fact, there are certain allegations that there have been human rights violations. Do you think the fact that there was no mention of human rights in the MDGs have a role to play in this situation today?
I wouldn't say that human rights wasn't mentioned in the MDGs. If you look into it, everybody needs food security. Children needs to be in school, ability to fight. They need to have the ability to fight diseases. A child would want to reach his or her 5th birthday, having toilets for sanitation. These are basic human rights that were recognized in the MDGs, and these are basic human needs. And more of this is being reflected in the SDGs, and there are mentions of governance as well in the SDGs this time.
But what about freedom of expression, press freedom, freedom to write, freedom to educate and teach other people that are also more important these days in the contemporary world?
I think the SDGs, when the MDGs came out, the MDGs took on a responsibility that was being neglected throughout the world. They wanted to provide a voice to the people who were the poorest of the poor, the people who are being neglected and becoming voiceless due to dying because they didn't have access to any basic services. And the idea of MDGs was to improve lives of people in the developing communities. And it was seen that MDG was developing a pathway for development that would be sustainable. And that's the reason why the Sustainable Development Goals is being framed around the goals that were put forth in the MDGs. And this, I believe, will improve the improvement of life of people, will help in bringing their voices and improving participation, which overall will improve the governance structure of countries and help the voices of the marginalized reach to the top level, which will help improve the human rights situation of the country.
What exactly are you doing at UNDP to gather public opinion or to gather the voice of the masses in formulating the SDGs or in working towards SDGs? Because the Maldives is going to take part in the summit in September, which is going to actually finalize, come up with the 2030 agenda for development, the post-2015 developmental agenda.
At UNDP, we've published a few reports on the achievements of MDGs, and throughout the past years we've been collecting people's opinions on what are the future goals that should be there. The My World campaign was held through, not through just UNDP, it was a UN system-wide effort, and we've used national celebrities to actually encourage people to give their opinion, and we've held different events to make sure that voices of a country, small as this may be, are reflected in the SDGs.
Now let's talk about the 17 goals of the new SDGs. Which of the goals do you think are the most important for the Maldives given our current situation?
All the goals are important, and Maldives should focus on all the goals as well. But looking at our past experience and seeing from the MDGs, the goal on achieving gender equality is one that we as a country needs to focus more upon, because as you know, equal representation of both gender in education and others are quite important, and this would be a goal I would say is quite important for the country as a whole.
As far as education is concerned, we have very much achieved parity between the two genders, but when it comes to economic empowerment of women, we are still lagging behind. I'm saying this from experience, as I have spoken with a member of Women on Boards, a local NGO that is striving to boost women's representation in the boards of the country. So what do you have to say about this? Economic empowerment of women, how much should we work for it?
I think that's quite a good area for us to work upon, and from the work that we do in UNDP as well, we've been promoting women entrepreneurship and also promoting women's participation in decision making. Looking into economic empowerment comes through different legislations that do come in Parliament. There needs to be sets of, the regulations needs to be framed in such a way that women have the opportunity to actually, and the accessibility to services that they want from the country, and to achieve economic, to participate in the
decision making process.
To participate in the decision making process will help to improve women's participation in the economic sector as well.
Now, one of the overarching goals of the MDGs was to eliminate poverty in all its forms and manifestations from the face of the earth. Yeah. And here in the Maldives, we have come a long way, of course, in eliminating poverty, but still it lurks around the corner. So how can we address this issue?
I think poverty needs to be looked at through a multidimensional lens. There are many reasons for people being in a poverty situation, and for Maldives we need to look into the changing nature of poverty. Here I would say that there are a lot of urban settings being developed and coming up, and this, in the Maldives we are seeing that urban poverty is rising, and this is an area that we should focus on when developing cities as well, and also look into access to employment for people who are unemployed, and look into the reasons why people are ending up in poverty traps in the country. We need to look into rise in rent, look into changes in the way in which people operate in the country. Inflation would be another one that we would need to look into as well.
Do we still have people in this country who are living in abject poverty, the extreme low of the impoverishment?
I think that's something we would see probably once the new household income expenditure survey comes out. But I think there would probably be a low percentage of people in the country, but it wouldn't be something that comes up on top, or it wouldn't be something that like what you see in other countries.
So we have improved, of course.
We have really improved on this area.
What about environmental sustainability? Because we here have a very fragile natural environment, and recently the 3R forum was held where more discussions and more outcomes were actually engineered regarding the 3Rs: reduce, reuse, and recycle. And 99 resorts signed the 3R declaration that they would work to conserve the environment and to exercise eco-friendly measures in providing their services to tourists who visit our country. So what do you have to say about environmental sustainability? How well are we expected to do as far as the SDGs are concerned?
I think the Maldives, in one way or the other, is a strong player in the global arena on promoting the agenda on reducing global warming and working on climate change.
Together with other small island developing states.
Yeah, and Maldives is taking the lead, being the chair of AOSIS on this agenda as well. Locally, you're finding the government also taking up initiatives like the 3R Forum, a global forum that's was held in the Maldives. There have been climate change investment forums happening in the country as well. And you're seeing announcements coming out through the government that they're working on water and sanitation, working on improving, working towards the renewable energy. I think there are some goals set by the government that they want to achieve within their term on renewable energy. And there have been strides towards moving towards solar energy as well. There's
a project to carry out solar powered projects actually in the country, because the government has actually, I think, realized the importance of renewable energy to developing countries like the Maldives. Moving on to another goal of the MDG goal, let's say the last goal, which we have not been able to achieve, is building global partnerships. What exactly does this mean?
Building global partnerships means, one, to look into ways in which economic prosperities could be shared, building into financing for development. This year, one thing with SDGs that you can see is, before even the document is being adopted, this year we had the meeting in July in Addis Ababa,
the Ethiopian capital.
We had the meeting there where governments actually came into an agreement how they would be financing for development, and this is a good move moving forward. And when looking into Maldives as well, Maldives is working with different countries to come up with different types of arrangements to work on development. When we look into it, you see that in terms of working on renewable energy, there are arrangements being made with different countries that Maldives is working on. In terms of gender as well, there are partnerships being built with different countries to work on improving promoting gender equality in the country. And I think this is probably what the goal is meant to be, everyone working together.
When I looked at your page on Facebook, the UNDP Maldives page, what I noticed was that there is great emphasis on the role of young people who are engaged in the development process. So how much weightage do you give to the role of young people in shaping the development of the Maldives?
I think young people in the Maldives can play a huge role in shaping development here. They are the majority if you look into the population, and the Maldives country office is actually, our country program is coming to an end this year, and a new program will be developed, has already been developed in discussions with the government and will be endorsed hopefully in September as well. And this program has a specific focus on working with youth on areas of, one, employment, youth entrepreneurship, youth participation, working with youth on community dialogues and bringing youth's voices to the forefront. And as UNDP, we believe that everyone should be a participant in what the development agenda of the country, and youth here are quite innovative. They, even at a young age, they are quite experienced and they could play a huge role in the country.
So as an engine for the development of the nation, youth are extremely important.
Yes.
And I don't doubt that the UNDP realizes this fact. In fact, most of the programs that you're carrying out at the moment are actually youth-oriented. What are some of the efforts that are going on as we speak?
One of our efforts is working with youth on youth dialogues. The idea is that youth working in the Maldives need a platform to bring voice out their opinions. We are working with different ways in which we can do this. We in the past had regular evening forums where youth can come in and have discussions around different issues the country is facing, be it political, economic or social. Right now we are experimenting with something that we worked on previously as well, called community-based theatre. This is something that we are hoping to try out not just in Malé but in different islands as well, where youth and also others within the community can participate in bringing out the issues of the country, but through a through theatre and art, and showcase the issues that they are facing to the community.
Do you do all this in a structured manner that allows the opinions of youth to be actually channelized into the policy making process, or is it just done for as a fun activity or just to build bonds, or is it just done to canvas opinion for a broader scheme of things?
I think the work that we do is quite tied to other works. The work we do with the youth is quite tied with the other works that we do in the country as well. The work on youth dialogue is under a governance program where we work with different government agencies as well, and the opinions that we get from the youth are fed into the other documents that we develop for government partners and other institutions. So the voices of the youth are well reflected in our other programs as well.
How cooperative are state institutions with the UNDP?
I think we enjoy a really good partnership with state agencies. One thing that we can really see is that when we work on an issue, be it a sensitive issue, the state parties, the government agencies, even independent institutions like the courts, they are willing to sit down with us and discuss issues. Every development issue that we work with, we work really closely with them, and we've always been able to convene meetings with them. So I would say we have a really strong partnership.
Do you face any hurdles in doing what you do?
In my experience, we haven't faced much hurdle. Some programs do face delays due to unforeseen circumstances, but other than that we don't face much hurdle in the country, and we've been having a strong program since I've been in the office and even before that. And I would say the work that we do, we are able to do it because we have a strong partnership with the government, with the people and with civil society.
How do you plan to build the partnership that you have with people? Because it is the people who are at the core of UNDP, because development comes from the people and not from anywhere else.
With the new program that is coming up, which will begin next year, we have a specific focus on voice and participation, where we'll be working much more closer with the people to make sure that their voices are heard, and we play a role to provide a platform for them to participate in decision making and make sure that their interests are brought forth in the development agenda of the country.
As a final question, I want to ask you, what is your vision for the SDGs and for the development of the Maldives in future?
I think with the MDGs, we know that this is something that we can do. We know that this is something that is achievable. We've seen through the MDGs that having a destination to go to with the targets that were set, a place that the world should be in a certain period, there is enthusiasm to work towards it, and the SDGs brings out a new and more ambitious agenda on the forefront. So with the SDGs, I think it's something that is quite achievable, and I think that if we, the people and the government work together, this is something that is quite achievable And with what we have seen through the past 15 years with the MDGs, if they are a testament to how a goal can work, I see a bright future for Maldives and other countries as well.
Thank you, Mr. Nasheed, for joining us tonight, and we wish the UNDP Maldives all the best in its efforts to bring development.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is me, Jashin Ahmed, signing off, hoping to return next week to discuss yet another issue of national and social importance. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.